Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you have your Bibles, you can open them up to the book of Deuteronomy, starting in chapter 16, which is where we're going to get started. I do, however, want to share with you briefly a review of our last time that we got together. Here's what we were discussing: the discipline of our Father. We talked a little bit about syncretism and adopting the ways of the dirt worshipers around us. The false prophets and societal justice. I did not say social justice, I said societal justice, because those are very different things. And I want to offer a point of clarification, because we talked a little bit last time about Father giving us good commandments that we could actually do, or he would be making fun of us, giving us a bunch of commands that would be too hard for us. He's just teasing us. But we talked about this from the perspective of like overcoming an addiction. It's kind of like battling your own sin nature is like overcoming an addiction. And we all had lots to say about battling addiction, and many of us have battled addiction. But I think that what we need to remember, and it began to occur to me as I was thinking about that this week, is that all of us battle addiction of some kind or another. In fact, the human condition, the sin nature, the Yetzer Hara, whatever you want to call it, is an addiction battle. We have taken to categorizing and creating a hierarchy of addictions, and we put people who are addicted to drugs up here. But those of us otherwise addicted, we get off a little bit, we get a bit of a pass, you know what I'm saying? And there is certainly a hierarchy of things that you can be addicted to that are certainly less destructive, but you might be addicted to some physical appetite. It could be alcohol, drugs, whatever that physical, it could be eating, it could be any number of things. But then there are those soulish, what I would call soulish addictions, which are, I have a desire to feel important. I have a desire to feed my ego, to feel good about myself. You know what I'm saying? There are all kinds of addictions. I have an addiction to television shows, whatever it is. We are all a huge bundle of addictions. That's just what it is. And I didn't think it was exactly fair for us to categorize like, well, there are people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol and nicotine. Those are the real people who have real problems. No. All of us are struggling with addiction in one way or another. And the second point I would make of clarification is that we talked about difficulties in our lives because we were talking about the blessings and the curses. And I would say that what's important there is that we don't want to walk away with the idea that if you are doing the best you can to keep the commands of YAH, it does come with a blessing, but that does not guarantee that you're not going to have difficulty and struggle. And discipline could be just the fact that you lived in a sinful world and all kinds of bad things happen to good people. It just, stuff happens, right? I think that it's okay to be in tribulation. You may not have caused it. We got to remember that. We also have to remember that it's okay to question our Father. It's not a problem. He has no problem. King David is a wonderful example of bad things happening to him. Some of it he caused, some of it he didn't. And he had some questions. And he was not afraid to take his questions to his Heavenly Father and say, what are you doing? You can get irritated, you can get angry, you can get frustrated. He is not threatened by you in any way, shape, or form. So if you want to pour out your heart to God and shake your fist to heaven and say, why am I dealing with this? He's perfectly okay to hear it. And I just want you to remember that we're all going to struggle, even if we're not violating the commands. And that's okay. Proper consideration and action is key. What we do in relation to the struggles that we deal with is what's important. That is what separates us from the dirt worshipers, right? That is the difference. We are struggling ahead. We are looking at bad situations around us, and we are giving thanks, as James would say, in all things. Whenever you encounter various trials, consider it all joy. That's the hard part. Complaining as little as possible and always having in the back of our minds, this is a good thing. I just don't know why yet. And that's what I would say in relation to, just wanted to tack that on to our discussion of last week. Now, this week we're dealing with Deuteronomy 16 through 21, and we're going to be looking at appointing leadership. There's a lot in this Torah portion about civil government, but civil government in relation to the Bible is very, very different than it is for us in the West and pretty much anywhere else on the planet. There has never been a theocracy on this planet except for the Hebrew culture. A pure theocracy that works as the Torah does. There have been lots of places that were ruled by some false god and weird priesthood, but not in any way, shape, or form like what we're looking at here. So we're going to look at, we don't have in the Bible a separation of church and state. We do not keep our worship lives and our private lives, our religious lives and our civil lives separate. Our religious life, if you want to call it that, should infuse and inform every single thing we do, from the things that would come out of our mouths, the thoughts that we think, the way that we work, the way that we interact with other people. Our belief system, our faith in our Father, His commandments should infuse and inform every single thing that we do. So there is no separation of faith and temporal living. It shouldn't happen. And this is what this Torah portion is primarily about, is establishing civil government in a Torah-based theocracy of the community of Israel. And you are Israel, you are grafted into Israel, so we should do it to the best of our ability. But remember that we are also in exile at the end of the age. So just like the Jews in the time of Yeshua, when they tempted him and said, hey, we found this woman sleeping with this dude over here. The Torah says she should be stoned. What do you think? Well, he knew they couldn't stone anybody. They didn't have authority. Rome had taken that away from them. That's why they had Rome crucify Yeshua. But it was a test, because if he said, well, yeah, we should stone her. So you're rebelling against authority, huh? So it was all a test. But we need to remember that we can and should follow these instructions to the best of our ability, unless we are going to step over the line and violate the civil authority under whom YAH has put us. Remember that YAH has given us Joe Biden and YAH has given us Donald Trump. Each in his turn, for whatever reason. He gives us exactly what we need, and unfortunately, sometimes he gives us exactly what we want. Doesn't always work out well. Make sense? So, first, I want to begin with a little reading from Deuteronomy 16. I'm going to start in Deuteronomy 16, verse 18, so that we can get a little grasp on some of these things that are coming up here. So if you have your camera on, you can go ahead and turn that off. I did not fail to press record. And here we are at Deuteronomy 16 and 18. It says, you shall appoint for yourself judges and officers. That's where we get the Torah portion name, Shoftim. Judges. In all your towns, which Yah your Elohim is giving you, according to your tribes, and so they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not distort justice. You shall not be partial, and you shall not take a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. Justice and only justice. In the Hebrew it says justice, justice twice. You shall pursue, that you may live and possess the land which Yah your Elohim is giving you. You shall not plant for yourself an Asherah of any kind of tree beside the altar of Yah your God, which you shall make for yourself. Neither shall you set up for yourself a sacred pillar, which Yah your Elohim hates. So I'm just going to stop right there. This is about the appointment of judges and law enforcement officers. This is basically what it comes down to. You know that it operates very much like the United States. We have a constitution that lays out what the laws are. We have an executive branch to enforce those laws, with judges to interpret those laws and law enforcement officers to enforce those laws. We got our laws from Yah, the 10 Commandments, and the rest of the instructions that he gave to Moses. We have judges who are going to oversee cases that are too hard for us on a lower level. If we can't hash it out amongst ourselves, we got to send it up the flagpole, right? To get somebody in a higher position of authority to help us hassle that out. But remember that Justice must be done right. When it says justice and only justice, it literally says justice, justice. And I take that to mean whenever the Bible repeats itself, you know that there's something happening there and you should pay close attention. So it says justice, justice you shall pursue, which means, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of Bible commentators, that you shall pursue justice with justice. That's because you can pursue justice in an unjust way, right? I take that to be what this is talking about. You must pursue justice in a just way. And I think that lex talionis, the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth principle, is exactly what the Torah is talking about. And we've talked about that before, that when the Torah says, well, an eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth, that does not mean that if somebody knocks out your eye, you knock out their eye, because that ain't doing anybody any good. But what it does mean is the punishment should fit the crime. That's exactly what that means. And so that is pursuing justice with justice. And it also talks about, in a little bit, it talks about you should never try to adjudicate someone based upon one witness. One witness says, I saw that person do it. We cannot trust one witness. We have to have a minimum of two, because the stories have to be collaborated. We'll have other sections in here. 1 second, Cadence, would you grab that for her, Anaya? That you have the opportunity to see in action how if a person is a false witness, then they tried to put together some type of an accusation against someone, and it was a false accusation, whatever the punishment would have been for that false accusation falls on them. So the pit that they dug, they fall into. That's what the book of the Proverbs talks about. So it's all wonderful. Cadence, I can hear you, can I?
Can you?
Let's hear it. Go ahead.
Wasn't the one exception to the rule of you have to have two witnesses with basically adultery or rape out in a field? It could have just gone off of the witness of the woman herself.
That's a great question. So yes, I would say, if a young woman is being molested out in the field or in the city, she is certainly supposed to cry out.
But if in the field she can't, there's no one around.
Right. It may not come to anything since no one can hear her out in the field, according to, I think, Exodus 25 or 26. So yes, that might be an exception, but consider that if this woman is in the city, let's say, and she has been accosted and she begins to yell and scream, if there's no one to hear her, then we have no witnesses, because she cannot be a witness herself. So if one person says, if she's in a city and only one person says, yeah, I saw her scream, we might have a problem on our hands. But if 2 or 3 people said, yes, I saw this young woman come running out of the house and she was screaming and her clothes were bedraggled, then you got 2 or 3 witnesses who heard her scream. But she can't be a witness herself. So does that make sense? Does that help?
But then what about in the case where she's out in the countryside?
There are no witnesses.
So she can just pull a name out of a hat and that dude has to die? Or
Well, if she's out in the field and there are no witnesses, that's why it's such a problem. And that's what the Torah talks about. She herself cannot be a witness. We've seen, unfortunately, in America, recent history where young ladies have come forward with false accusations against people where there were no witnesses and ruined the lives of some young men. Now, it does happen that way, and it also happens the other way. But there has to be a witness of some kind. So if she's out in the field and she's yelling, no one's going to hear her. She can't just come forward and say it happened. It might very well have, but there's no witnesses. That we can build upon that. Would you hand that up for Tracy for me? We can build upon that, and we now have other types of witnesses, like scientific evidence could be a witness, where there's some kind of a rape kit that is performed, and there's DNA evidence or something. That would be one witness. Okay, so that's not just a human witness, at least nowadays. Tracy?
Yeah, I was just wondering about Tamar, when she came with Judah's two things. It was like a mantle and a scepter or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good
Are
one.
those two witnesses? That's what I was just wondering if you have like, because now we have DNA, we
Sure.
have things like
Yeah.
that we can say, hey, this
Yeah.
obviously was you. But
That's a great question, and I would say it's a spiritual application of that question, because you might have the two things that I think it was a seal and staff or something like that she brought forward, and those would be two witnesses that she got from him himself. So that's a pretty good idea. Cece, what do you got for me, sister?
This thing going around saying that Bathsheba was raped by David, but there is no evidence really of that in scripture.
Where's that going around? I ain't never heard that.
Well, that's the thing for sure.
Where are you hanging out, Cece? I don't know where that came from.
It has come up several times.
I'm kidding.
Putting their like worldly, their modern view
Mm.
on scripture. So I brought it up because the rape is coming up in this sense, and obviously, I don't know. I just couldn't find the evidence of that.
Yeah, that'd be pure speculation as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know, but I don't even know what I would say about that. I mean, David saw her from the roof. I don't know what happened from there because the text doesn't really tell us. So that would be pure speculation.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't help.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, no, anyway. So, the way that this society is structured is that we have our Father in heaven at the top. He gives the rules. We've got a high priest with an Urim and a Thummim, which, is stop and go. We don't even know exactly what that is. Some kind of spiritual, supernatural sign to decide cases. We got Moses, the law interpreter, but he's going to be dead before they even cross the Jordan to go over into the Promised Land. And, under that, the structure of the society is different. I would say it starts in the home. Who's the head of the home? It's the man, it's the husband. Then you got that family, a broader family. There's probably some patriarch, some grandfather, something like that who's in charge. Then you got the clan itself, tribe of Levi, tribe of Naphtali, who they have their own clan leadership. So it's a hierarchy of judges who are supposed to judge righteously and not take a bribe and not favor the poor over the rich or favor the rich over the poor. And unfortunately, in our culture, it's completely whacked. The rich sometimes take super precedence, and sometimes the poor take super precedence. Most often it's going to be the rich, but sometimes we will let people off the hook just because they're poor. We feel bad for them. Or just because they're a certain skin color or a certain sex or a certain disadvantaged class in our culture. You can get off the hook for doing your crime because we feel bad for you. Or you're powerful enough that you're untouchable. You bought the judge. You have friends with the district attorney. They're not even going to prosecute you to begin with. So our system is fully corrupt, like any system would be, any human-run system. And in fact, their system was fully corrupt. This just every iteration that you have seen in the Hebrew culture, you can see from the period of Joshua made some serious mistakes. Even though he is a really good visual spiritual representation of our Messiah Yeshua taking his people into the Promised Land, he still made a lot of mistakes, even though he is a good parallel to the Messiah Yeshua. We have the period of the judges where every man is doing what's right in his own eyes. Okay? Everybody's doing whatever they feel like. We got a tremendous amount of corruption in this culture as well as every other culture. So it's not uncommon. So the bottom line, though, is that we have a father, we have a high priest after Moses is gone, we have Levites who administrate it, we have clan eldership and tribe eldership and family eldership, and that's how it works up. And he tells us repeatedly, if you got some kind of hard issue between family members or between tribe members, send it up the flagpole. It's just exactly like America. We have local courts, we have appellate courts, we have the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is nothing more than the high priest rolling the dice, the Urim and Thummim, or whatever those are. We don't know how to interpret that. But he's going to appeal directly to his Father in heaven. And his Father in heaven is going to tell him this one or that one. Just like they did with we have to replace Judas because he hung himself in a tree and bust open when he fell off. So which one of these two guys? We got two good guys who are, very, very well appointed for the post, which we don't know which one because only you can tell the heart. They both look good on the outside. Which one do you choose? So that's how the society is structured. Now, I'm moving into chapter 17 for a brief section, and I want to talk a little bit more about government in this culture and how it might reflect in our culture. So if you want to, you can flip over to Deuteronomy 17. And this is in Deuteronomy 17, starting right in chapter 17, verse 2. It says here, if a man or a woman among you is in one of your towns that YAH your Elohim is giving you, is discovered doing evil in the sight of YAH your Elohim and violating his covenant, and has gone to worship other gods by bowing down to the sun, the moon, or the stars of the sky, which I have forbidden, and if you are told or hear about it, you must investigate it thoroughly. There you go. We got to investigate thoroughly. We're talking about witnesses again. If the report turns out to be true that this detestable thing has happened in Israel, you must bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing and stone them to death. There's your death penalty case, okay? And I'm jumping forward a little bit to Deuteronomy 17:12, where it says, the person who acts arrogantly, refusing to listen either to the priest who stands there serving YAH your Elohim or to the judge must die. You must purge the evil from Israel. Then all the people will hear about it and be afraid and no longer behave arrogantly. I think I mentioned to you a month or so ago about disciplining children. It's kind of, and I think I told you the story about a guy that I was listening to who said, look, man, he wasn't even a religious guy. He was just seemed like to me what a good parent. He would give his child an instruction and say, hey, you need to do this. And if the child gave him any guff at all, he said, well, let me just correct you on this. You're going to do it, whether with or without consequences. You take your choice. I don't really care. You're going to do exactly what I told you to do. You can do it with a good attitude and get a pat on the back from me, or you can give me attitude and fight and kick and roll around on the ground. I don't really care, but you're going to get this if you do that. And it's some form of punishment. Take your pick. I don't really care. There's going to be punishment if you don't do it, and there's going to be praise if you do. Take your pick. That's how you raise children. Because if you don't, you have seen what happens when you get teenagers who never learn to listen to their parents. They're running amok. Okay, they're out there running through convenience stores and stealing stuff off the shelves and just mobbing places and completely chaotic. These young people have zero respect for authority, literally zero. You can see it. I enjoy a good train wreck, like most of you. If you see something on YouTube, it's like cops pulling somebody over, and the dude jumps out of his car. What are you pulling me over for? And he's ready to fight a cop. It's a great way to earn a beat down, and possibly get shot and end up in prison. Okay, but we have so many people who have zero respect for authority, and this is why, because their parents never told them, whoa, what? You said no? That's not an option, sister. So they graduate to having no respect for authority, and suddenly society is falling apart because you have zero respect for authority. And our Father here says, look, if you ever have a situation where you have to take this person or that person to court and somebody has to decide the case, and the judge or the higher judge, whoever it is, says, this is the decision, and one of them says, I ain't paying attention to that, dead. We can't put up with that. Why? Because it will spread. Just like fear, rebellion spreads, and you must purge this evil from society, or it will spread, and hopefully people will hear about it and go, whoa, you do not want to rebel against authority in this culture because you'll be put to death. That's serious business. Very serious business. It even goes to the depths of the child. We have this child of ours, and he's a drunk and he won't listen to us, you take that child to the gate. And we're not talking about a 10-year-old, obviously. A 10-year-old's not going to be a drunkard unless, I don't know what your household's like. Lou and then Tracy.
Well, this is a saying that you hear all the time, but I think it's true. It takes a village to raise a kid.
That's a book by Hillary Clinton.
Well,
I'm kidding. It is a book by Hillary Clinton, but it's true. I don't know if her solution was one I would advocate, but it is true.
But when I was growing up, I was as afraid as my friend's dad if he got on to me, because my dad would say, no, you respect that person.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
100%.
It's not, I don't know about Hillary Clinton, but.
Well, my mom was only 4'11", so I wasn't afraid of her.
Yeah.
But I was afraid of my dad.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
I mean,
good point, Lou. You are correct.
Yeah, the whole village or the whole neighborhood,
It's about accountability.
accountability.
Yes, and you know what's important? You can pass that to Tracy. You know what's important about that, Lou, and the whole thing about it taking a village is when you live in an honor and shame culture, you got a son who's wayward and is rebellious and everybody in the village knows about it. You can't have that because your whole family loses face in the village and you become like dirt. Your whole name is dirt. You're breaking up. Well, and unfortunately, this is where you get into honor killings. And to us, we look at that from like a Muslim culture and we go, man, that's really bad. Is it though? Is it though? That's what I mean, I would not, far be it for me to say that the Muslims are doing it right, but unfortunately, in certain cases, they are doing better than we are. Now, they're just willing to do it in a democratic society, which you cannot do. But their willingness to do it is astonishing, troubling, and yet also right. Troubles me in my spirit. Tracy.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of bounce off of what you're saying with, this open rebellion and connecting it to the man who's collecting sticks on the Sabbath day.
Right.
Because a lot of times we'll read that and be like, well, that seems kind of severe. But if you
Yeah.
don't understand what he was doing,
Right.
so just prior to that,
Yeah, it was a previous sentence. They were like getting explicit instructions.
Yeah, so that's, I think, essentially what
100%.
the heart of what was happening
Yes.
there. This is a rebellious heart.
Absolutely. Tracy makes an excellent point about people, picking apart our Bible and saying, oh yeah, God's great. He's going to stone somebody for picking up sticks. No, it's because that person said minus 4 fingers and said, I don't care. Kill me. Well, okay, you're dying. What are you laughing at?
Shut up.
Sorry, they're making fun of me, I think. Anyway, so anyway, this is probably one of the biggest problems in the world. You know that there are very few places in the world that carry out the death penalty in the West. Now, that does happen in the East, but in the Western cultures, we don't do the death penalty. We do some here in America, but not nearly enough. I mean, there are some cases of, rape and murder and whatever. We have a system that actually the victims have to take care of the perpetrator, house him, feed him, give him a workout room, television, commissary, and let him, it's obviously not a great place to live, but he's doing okay. He's got 3 hots and a cot. We're taking care of him, even though he murdered someone. And what's tragic about that is the Avenger of Blood, the whole thing, and then we get into this in this Torah portion, this idea where they found a body in the field, but they don't know who did it. It's an unsolved murder. And they have this ritual that they have to go through because blood and unjustified homicide is such a huge issue for our God. He hates bloodshed, and bloodshed that is not atoned for, expurgated, if you will, that is not atoned for and taken care of, like cleansed in some way. And that's the chief way that you cleanse the spilling of unjust blood is And it's right in the very beginning when he gives some instructions to Noah. It's like, if a man kills a man, his blood will be shed. Those scales have to be balanced because now we have a land that is soaked in blood because there's so many people that are doing deeds that are worthy of death, but they're going completely unpunished or minimally punished. It's a tragic, tragic thing. And how can a person, the avenger of blood has that ability to bring peace and satisfaction to him or herself in their family, to restore honor to their clan or whatever? Hayden, can you take care of this for me? So that's a real challenge. And so we have to figure out what we're going to do with that as a culture. And I don't think we're going to. Obviously, it's not going to be fixed until Yeshua returns and destroys the internet and sets everything right. Make sense? So there is Deuteronomy chapter 17. Now, I want to move forward with Deuteronomy chapter 18. This is one is particularly fascinating, and I'm just going to read a little section from it. So if you would, forward over to Deuteronomy 18, starting in verse 9, where it says this: When you enter the land which Yah your Elohim gives you, you shall not learn to imitate the detestable things of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire. That's some kind of fire ritual with pagan worship. One who practices divination, one who practices witchcraft, one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who casts spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead, a necromancer, I think you might call that. For whoever does these things is detestable to Yah. And because of these detestable things, Yah your Elohim will drive out these people from before you. You shall be blameless before Yah your Elohim. Now I'm jumping forward a little bit to verse 14 where it says this: Though these nations you are about to drive out listen to fortune tellers and diviners, Yah your Elohim has not permitted you to do this. Yah your God will raise up for you a prophet like me, Moses, from among your own brothers. You must listen to him. Now, skipping forward a little bit to verse 18. I will raise up for them a prophet like you, talking to Moses, from among their brothers. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. I will hold accountable whoever does not listen to my words that he speaks in my name. Now, this is dealing with idolatry and also their need, the Hebrew Israelites' need for some type of a prophet, an intermediary like Moses, who is like a go-between between the people and the Father in heaven. Now, we talked before about how there is only ever on this planet been two mediators between God and man. One is Moses and the other is Yeshua. That's it. Now, there are other classes of people who are not quite in the same class. That would be your judges, your prophets, your kings, but they are in a separate class from a mediator like Moses or Yeshua, who heard from the Father directly and transmitted that information. Now, a prophet, just like Yah said, when I speak to a prophet or a vision, I give them a vision or dark sayings, but not so with my servant Moses. We talk face to face like a man talks to his brother. Okay, so here's the important thing about this. What do all of these things, diviners and witchcraft and interpreting omens and sorcery and talking to the dead, what are all these things? Why do these people do these things? What is that? What's it for? Is it just people who are curious about supernatural stuff? Are these the kind of people who would watch unsolved tornadoes on television? What is it?
Same reason people do it now.
Yeah. What do you think that is?
They want to know the future. They want to understand what's going to happen to them. So
They want to know the future. They want to know what's going to happen. In other words, they want to see behind the curtain. They want to see the secret realm. Okay, and so yes, you are absolutely right. Secret knowledge is what drives these people. And it gives them an edge over others perhaps, makes them feel special. In fact, there are many people, not in this congregation necessarily, but in especially Hebrew roots type congregations, who are just like that. They can treat their own special insider knowledge of what the truth is in a similar way. Do you see what I'm saying? You can start to feel very special, but you can, and there's another word for that, and you all know what it is. It's Gnosticism. That's this very definition of Gnosticism. We have secret knowledge that no one else has. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel good to have an exclusive on the truth? To know that we're supposed to be doing this and nobody else understands it, and we're in this weird little cool cult where we get to know the truth and no one else does. Don't you feel special now? That's where it starts. That's where it leads to spiritual exclusivity, feeling like you have this secret knowledge and it gives you an edge over others. And this is, and this secret knowledge gives way in a lot of cases to occultic ritual occultism. At least it did in this culture. And can you see how it might, in a Hebrew roots type context, you get this special knowledge and all of a sudden you're special and you have these special, it can be, I have seen it on several occasions become like a cultic ritual for people. And some of those people ultimately leave the faith altogether. Convert to Judaism, some just go into mysticism. They're Gnostics. They were among us, but they were never really of us. Does that make sense? You heard that sound like something from the Bible? So here's the thing. These people are using secret knowledge in a way to gain ascendancy, to gain power over situations, over others. They want a special edge. But see, ritualistic occultism is in a different class than being an unwilling dupe. Okay, you can be a tool of the enemy, the Satan, the adversary, whatever, by just being ignorant. But when you go to the ritualistic occultism, you have become a willing participant. And unfortunately, this is where you get into these things about passing your children through the fire and using divination and all kinds of weird stuff. And that's where you get into the realm of absolute idolatry. 100% idolatry. And I have seen it in the Hebrew roots movement. I have absolutely seen out and out idolatry in the Hebrew roots movement where people have taken their knowledge, their secret knowledge, and elevated it to a status, and it made them feel really good. But here's something that I want to bring to your attention. You recognize, I hope that you will, that ritual practice to the common Israelite and to you is entirely forbidden. Always was and always will be in the Old Testament and the New. There is only one small, think about this. In the Old Testament, if you want to put it that way, how did a believer in YAH worship God? What did they do? Well, following the rules, we would say that's how you actually do it. But there was definitely more ritual involved in the Torah of Moses. And when there's a temple standing, at least, and a priesthood, there's definitely some ritual involved there. But consider this. I'm going to bring an animal. I'm going to bring a grain offering. I'm going to do whatever the Torah dictates that I have to do certain times throughout the year. Now, am I doing that? No, I am not. I'm simply bringing it and I'm giving it to a priest or a Levite of some kind. So the common Israelite is entirely forbidden from engaging in any kind of ritualistic practice, period. As a Christian, as a follower of Yeshua, what does it mean to worship God? Did it change? Are you now permitted? Is there some type of ritual worship of God? What does it mean to you as a New Testament believer, a Messianic Christian, whatever you want to call yourself? What does it mean to you to worship God. I'm thinking about passages like Yeshua talking to the woman at the well, the true followers will worship in spirit and truth. This is Paul talking about, you having, this is your good and righteous sacrifice, talking about sacrificing yourself rather than an animal. So what does it mean to a Christian to worship our Father in heaven? How do you do that on a practical level? Scott.
Oh, sorry, got the wrong. I was just reflecting on your comment, just thinking about how Peter calls everyone a priest, ultimately, as in the sense of today. So in a sense, I guess I've always looked at worship as simply being anything that the Father has told us to, we do, and that is an act of worship.
I think that's about as simple as it needs to be, Scott. I think that it really doesn't need to go much further than that, and it's an awesome insight. I would say a true worshiper of God does what God says, period. That is a true act of worship. Now, we've gotten ourselves wrapped around the axle and have kind of started to twist praise and worship together. When we go to church and there's somebody up there, there's a rock band up there, a light show, fog machines, singers, disco dancing, whatever. Is that worship? Not even close. Not even close. Okay? That's praise. And praising God is fine, but that ain't worship. Remember that to worship is to primarily do what He told you to do. But if you want to take it to a little bit of a more spiritual level, I suppose that there could be a heart attitude in your mind and in your heart and in your soul which says two things. Father, everything that I have comes from you, and I am grateful. That is a spiritual act of worship. Everything else, remember, is mostly related to horizontal relationships between each other. Not screwing over your brother and sister. Loving your neighbor as yourself. This is how all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. So that is your act of worship, loving one another. Because there is no way for you to engage in some type of ritual. I've seen it happen where people go down some weird rabbit hole and start making up their own rituals in Hebrew Roots movement, and suddenly they are engaged in some type of ritual occultism.
Just doing what every religion has done.
They're just doing what every religion has done over time. So that you are not permitted to have, and this sounds bad to a Christian, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway, you are not ever permitted through some type of ritual to have direct access to our Father. Now, don't hear me say that you can't pray to our Father and He doesn't hear you, because that is the exception to the rule. You cannot go and make a sacrifice on some mountain somewhere with some goat or a chicken or whatever. There's nothing that you're going to do physically, like I need a pinch of this and a little bit of yarn and a little bit of thread and a little fire. No. There is no ritual connection between you and your Father in heaven. Ever has been in the Bible, period. Ever. Except through a priest. Now, Yeshua is your high priest. He is your connection to the Father. But He also said, I give you a connection directly. I believe that. And that He says, He doesn't say pray to me. He says if you're going to pray to your Father, do it this way. And He uses the Father. He says pray to your Father. You have access to Him. He loves you. But you can't get involved in ritual. There's no ritual allowed for you, and there was no ritual allowed for them. Sorry, that may be slightly contentious, but I want you to hold on to that, Lou. I'm coming right here. Scott, I think you're done, and we're going to Maureen, or is that correct? Or Bob, one of the Maureen or Bobs.
It just made me think, I was raised Catholic, and part of the problem that I had with the Catholic faith was all of the rituals and the idolatry.
You are very correct, Maureen, that especially in Catholicism and some Eastern Orthodoxy and some other religions that are based on the Bible, I would not say they are Bible religions, they are based on the Bible, they are heavy into ritual. You are absolutely correct. And I particularly think of Catholicism, it is loaded with ritual, for sure. So that's yeah, everything is very much ritualized. So yeah, that's a dangerous place to be in. Lou, I apologize. You're up, buddy.
Well, Paul says that, if you talk in tongues or you do certain things, it's just noise if you don't have love.
Yes, good point. Good point. That can become a ritual.
Yeah,
100%.
it can.
Good insight. Good insight. Scott, coming back to you, brother.
Yeah, I just tremendously important to realize when we think about worship, how is it worship? It's ultimately because we do the things that he tells us to, because we acknowledge that he created things with design, and his design is beneficial for us.
Yeah.
We worship him by walking in that manner.
100%. And I would say it doesn't need to be any more complicated than this. Especially if you have children, you'll understand this. What would my sons or daughters do to honor me? I don't want them burning fires to me and burning incense to me. That's not helpful. What I would think would be really nice is if they listened to me and they did what I told them. I would feel honored and not worshiped, but I would feel honored as a father if my son or my daughter said, "Gee, Dad, that's a great idea. I'm going to do exactly what you said." Now, I know that sounds completely stupid, but seriously, that would be honoring if you as a parent, your child said, "Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do that because I honor you. You're smarter than me. You're wiser than me. You're older than me. You probably had some difficulty in life and you've learned, and I'm going to learn from your wisdom instead of having to make that mistake myself. I'm going to do that." That would honor me as a parent. So it's exactly the same with our Father. I don't need incense. You don't need to plant a tree in my name. You don't need to decorate a tree and put my name on it. I don't need any of that stuff. Just do what I tell you. I'm looking out for you. I love you. I wouldn't give you bad advice. Just do what I tell you and everything's going to be great. That would be honoring to me. Tracy, you have a microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll see if I can articulate this because it kind of goes along with everything you're saying, what Lou is saying about loving. Love has to come first. And that's really how we're known as a disciple of Yehoshua, is if we love one another. And then we got this idea of, spiritual gatekeeping, where it's like, I want you to come to me for this information. And we know knowledge puffs up. So
Yeah.
we see that throughout history, throughout religion,
Yep.
and, Pharisees and whatnot.
Right.
So, and then we're constantly told, humble yourselves, humble yourselves.
Yep.
And the Hebrew word picture for disciple, the root is limud, lamed, mem, dalet.
Mm-hmm.
The lamed is to lead, the mem represents waters or people, and then the dalet is the door. So a disciple is going to lead the people to the door, which is the Messiah through the word.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, and if you're trying to say, hey, come to me,
Mm-hmm.
let me help you, you're making a god of yourself, and you're no longer being that pointer.
Right.
That's really
Right.
our job, is just to point.
Right.
And that's something I
Right.
think we all can fall victim to. So it's important to bring that to mind of what
Yeah.
your job really is.
100%. 100%. Great insight. Great insight. Did you have something you wanted to say, Angela? Did Evan? Or was he just coming to get a drink? Okay. I want to do one final thing with you, and then I'm going to wrap up. Look at me all on time and stuff. Fantastic. I'm going to jump forward a little bit to Deuteronomy 20. Okay, so Deuteronomy 20, chapter 20, verse 10 is where I'm going to take you for this little portion. So in 20 and 10, it says, "When you approach a city to fight against it, you shall offer it terms of peace. And it shall come about, if it agrees to make peace with you and opens to you, then it shall be that all the people who are found in it shall become your forced labor and shall serve you. However, if it does not make peace of you, but makes war against you, then you shall besiege it. Then when Yah your Elohim gives it into your hand, you shall strike all the men in it with the edge of the sword. Only the women and the children and the animals and all that is in the city, all its spoil you will take as booty for yourself. So you shall use the spoil of your enemies, which Yah your Elohim is giving you. Thus you shall do to all the cities that are very far from you, which are not of the cities of the nations nearby. Only in the cities of these people that Yah your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance, you shall not leave alive anything that breathes. So this is a difficult section to rationalize because it appears very strange to us as we read this and go, man, is God telling us that these people, all of them must die, women, children, animals, everything, burn it all. And then others, if they want to fight you, kill them, but you can keep all the young people and the women for yourselves as spoil? Yes. Now, I am uncomfortable with, and you should be too, the idea of holy war. And you have heard holy war going around, the jihadis talk about holy war, and maybe in the Crusades they were talking about holy war. As far as I can tell, biblical holy war will only happen on this planet 3 times. Can you guess what they are? What are the 3 times? But first, maybe you need to think about. Now, holy war, let me just tell you what I believe the biblical definition of holy war is. Direct message from God that says everyone must die. 3 times in the Bible. What's the first one? Noah. Noah. God did it himself. He saved one family and killed everyone else. Next time is the Canaanite conquest under Joshua. And the third and final time is the book of the Revelation. The revelation of the Messiah Yeshua when he returns from the planet. Lots and lots of people are completely destroyed. That is holy war. And that means all must die. Now, this is prophetic. This passage right here. If they don't want to make war with you, they want to make peace with you, they will become your servants. Are there people during the tribulation period or something who will repent? Now, the book of Revelation does suggest that there's a lot of people who refuse to repent. But I also have to believe that I am not totally of the opinion that Yeshua comes back and kills every single thing on the planet who is not one of his followers. I have difficulty with that, not because I think it's unfair, but because I think there's some other passages in the prophecies that lead me to believe that there is some type of a remnant of the nations. I'm totally up in the air on that. Whenever I speak about prophecy, you can say, I think you're full of doo-doo, and I'll say, I probably am. So I write that stuff in pencil. I have no idea about prophecy. But what I will say is this. Those are the only 3 times that I'm aware of that true holy war is being waged on this planet. Somebody get a microphone over to Jerry, if you don't mind. Just pass it on down. So here's the thing. I want you to remember that as the Israelites are coming into the land of Canaan, do they have some hatred in their heart? Do they got some grudge against the Canaanites? No. They don't really know them at all. They've been living in a foreign land for anywhere from 250 to 400 years, which is about as long as the United States has existed as a government. So it's been a long time. They don't have any personal animosity against these people. They don't know them at all. But Father is telling them, you must kill of these particular places. And if you move forward in the book of Deuteronomy, just a couple of verses, you'll see it tells you specifically the Hittites. There's another couple in there. Now, you know that there are 7 nations in there. There's all these ites. But right here in Deuteronomy, there's only 3 listed of the 7. Did you notice that? Right here in Deuteronomy 20, and I think it's verse, it's probably 17 or 18. Can anybody find that for me real quick? What does it say, Amy? What does it say, Amy?
Well, I don't know how to pronounce it, but you shall utterly destroy them,
The Hittites, the Amorites,
the Canaanite,
and the Perizzite. Okay.
The Hivite, and the Jebusite.
Okay, so there are 7 that we have had listed before, but not all 7 are listed here. So this is telling you explicitly, these people must be completely exterminated. Now, I don't know what to do with that. Lots of people who are atheists or whatever are going to look at that and go, man, your God is brutal. Well, I don't get to make the decisions, but for whatever reason, he has determined that these people are beyond fixing. Are there certain people on this planet who just must die? Yeah. And to the extent that they have corrupted everything around them, even their own children, yeah. I don't understand it, but Father said it, so I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I'm coming to you in just a moment, ma'am. Jerry, you're up first.
I agree with you on there's the 3 times when there's been a holy war, but I believe there's one more.
You do?
Yeah, at the end of the book of Revelation.
Oh, you're talking
We're gonna
about
go at
like
end of
the final one
tribulation,
at the end of
when
the.
Satan is going to be let loose, he's going to.
Yeah,
come
so
down,
that's
there are probably people
a
that
good
saved,
question, good point, and
he's
you could be right.
Fire's
You
going
could
to
be
come
right.
down from heaven and wipe out most of those people.
And you know, that goes about with what I was saying a second ago, Jerry. It's like, if who's going to be rebelling against God at the end of the tribulation, or at the end of the 1,000-year period? All these Christians who were raptured and made it through the tribulation period, they're now rebelling against God, and he sends fire down and kills a bunch of them?
The millions of people
That
that
seems
are born
weird to
during
me.
that time.
Yeah, so you could be right. That might be another instance, a 4th instance of holy war, I suppose. Yeah, that's a good insight. Would you pass that forward, Jerry, to, I have forgotten her name, I've only met, what is it? Laura? Laura is going for it.
Hi, I just sort of have a question about the Canaanites. I always had trouble with, killing everybody. And one thing that gave me more comfort, and this is really disgusting, and you can be repelled if you want, but several years back, there were pictures of Muslim, I think it was Al-Qaeda, holding the heads of Christians. And they were like 4 and 5. And not that it's justified to kill people, but it was the only way I could even get a parallel.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
I
just
absolutely
a
know what you
glimpse of it, because that was the only thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm getting the glimpse.
I totally understand exactly what you're saying, and I think that you got an excellent and accurate glimpse of. Okay, you can see, for example, what happened to Israel on October 7th a couple of years back, where it's like true acts of barbarism. Okay, and all of these, some of these instructions that we're getting from our Father in heaven is talking about, you shall not have sex with animals. Whoa, what? Sex with animals? You shall not pass your children through the fire. What are we talking about? You shall not sleep with your dad's wife. So these are really weird things, and it's like, and it tells you, these are the things that these people are doing. So they're fully corrupted beyond redemption, engaged in just full-on barbarism that is just brutal and ugly. And one thing that kind of gave me a little insight, kind of just like it did with you, was long ago you would kind of hear about Hamas or Hezbollah or whatever, and they've got these little toddlers who are 2, 3, they can just barely talk, and they're in school, and what are they teaching them? Hate, kill, and kill Jews. These people are going to need to be destroyed. So they're teaching their little ones, as soon as they can talk, that the other is an abomination and must die. Okay, so this is full-on corruption, and how can you? It starts to make a little bit more sense to me. If you would not be human if it didn't make you uncomfortable in some way, but you can get a glimpse of true evil in the world sometimes. And understand, okay, yeah, there are certain things where it is so ugly that everyone must die. Just right behind you there, Amy. But hold on to that. Just chill. Don't do it. Hold. David was before you. Sorry. David, what's the word on the street?
Oh, not much. I was thinking about Saul and Amalek.
Yes.
Supposed to destroy utterly
Exactly.
everything.
Yes, exactly. That's.
And people speculate that because he didn't do that in every generation we'll have a war with Amalek.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great insight, David. And I was just reading that, a week ago with my wife. We're studying that book right now. And if But see what's weird, David, and it doesn't detract from what you're saying at all, but the Amalekites just seem to continuously pop up. It's like there's a big slaughter of the Amalekites, and yet somebody survives somewhere to carry on this evil. It's like Saul was supposed to kill Agag, and he did not. How did Haman end up in the book of Ruth? He's a descendant of, where did that dude come from? These Amalekites, like self-generate or spontaneously generate or something, I don't know. Or it's maybe, David, and it's not a specific people, it's a way of life. That's an Amalekite. I think of the movie Road Warrior when I think of Amalekites. Okay, go ahead, Amy.
Well, you were talking about killing so that they wouldn't
Contaminate.
Yeah, or teach you're talking about how they're teaching their children young,
Sure,
right?
sure.
They're growing up. So I was just looking at the very next verse when it says your God has commanded you to destroy them. Then it says, so that they may not teach you to
Right.
do according to all their detestable things which they have done
100%.
for their gods.
Yep.
Same reason why it says don't make marriages a certain people.
Right.
He knows the outcome. He doesn't see glimpses of it.
Yep. 100%. There's so much fascinating stuff in here, but some of it's hard for us to understand from our human reasoning, but it makes perfect sense in other areas. But I think what we have to do is we have to just say, he said it, it's true. I don't know exactly what to do with it, but I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to accept it for what it is. Can I carry out all of his commands? No. Some, like the ones that I can do, and this has been my mantra for a long time now, if the Bible says you shall and you can, then you must. If the Bible says you shall not, then you must not. I don't care whether the society tells you must or not. That would be the exception. So I would hope that is the standard that we keep ourselves to. So that's all I have for you. It is time to wrap up. I really appreciate your patience. We have been plowing through some of this stuff. It's been really good. Any comments, questions, or concerns for the good of the order? Angela, would you come and get a mic from Amy? She has it here.
I just wanted to bring it back to what you said about your kids doing what you asked them to.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of stuff in there that we have a hard time understanding why, but us only doing the things that we understand would be like your kids only doing the things that you told them to do that they understand, which is very, very
or
frustrating.
Or that they agree with.
Or that they agree with. You know? So,
good.
Yeah, we just remember that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. David.
I had one last thought was one of the verses that really struck me, seemed very prophetic in the study, was regarding Moses says, when you come into the land, you're going to want a king, and God's going to give you a king. And here's the things that you're not supposed to do.
Right.
You're not supposed to, go down to Egypt and get yourself a bunch of horses.
Right.
Check. We did that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to take unto yourself many wives. 700 plus 300 concubines. And you're not supposed to accumulate silver and gold. Oddly, Solomon gets 666 talents of gold annually.
Yes, that's a good indication.
What you want.
That's a good indication. I thank you for bringing that up, David, because I will say this, my final offering, and then we'll pray and then we'll wrap it up. There are things in the Bible that are commanded by God that were not his intention. Do you know what I'm saying by that? I mean, did he want to have a human king? No, that was never in his mind. In fact, when the Israelites said, "Give us a king so that we can be like everybody else," he said, "No, that's not what you're supposed to do." But I think that what our Father does, and you can see this with the slavery issue in the Bible as well, is he is guiding human behavior. If he had given us a series of rules that were just outside the scope of human behavior, then he would be unrelatable. But he says, I know you are going to appoint a king for yourself. He did not say, you must appoint a king for yourself. He said, when you appoint a king for yourself, because you're going to rebel against me and you're going to want a human king instead of to follow me, here's what you got to do to protect yourself as best you can from your own stupidity. Right? That's what he's basically saying. I know you're going to want your own king, and I'm going to give you some guide. I am not condoning this. This would be like, this is never mind, I'm not even going to say it. It's blasphemy. I will say something like this. This would be like a parent who says, I know that my kids are going to drink and do drugs, but maybe if I just let them drink and do drugs in my own home, that would be safer than them being out there in the world. Now, are you right? Well, I guess. I mean, sure. I mean, no, that just seems wrong. But in a sense, that's like God saying to his people, look, I know that you are full on stupid and you're going to do stuff that's dumb. And when you do that really dumb stuff, let me put some bumpers on the rail of the bowling alley here so you don't go fully off the ditch. That does not mean that he's like, this is my plan. You see what I'm saying? He does that a lot of times. It's like, when you get a slave, you must treat them in this way. He's not condoning slavery. He's acknowledging you live in a world full of slavery, and you're probably going to do it too. You shouldn't, but if you are going to, you must do it this way, because there's no other culture on the planet who has rules regarding slavery like the Torah does, that has righteous guidance for if you're going to have a servant, you have to treat them well. You must give them rights and privileges and safety and justice. They may have, been captured by you in a battle where, this is one of those people who live and they're going to be your servant, but you have to treat them this way. So that's a different thing. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say the hardness of the heart with the divorce.
The hardness of the heart with divorce. The divorce is a perfect example. I know you're going to be stupid and get a divorce. You must do it in this way. He is not condoning divorce. So I thank you, David, for bringing that up. That was an important point that needed to be brought out. So just because and you can also apply that to characters in the Bible. Well, this character did that. That don't make it right. The Bible tells you all kinds of stupid stuff that people do. So just because, and not even be a righteous guy. Look at David. He did a bunch of stupid stuff. So, you just have to use a little bit of wisdom. But I thank you for your kind attention, and thank you for reading all of this in advance and being prepared to discuss it with me. You guys are awesome. I appreciate your wisdom and insight. Let us pray and we'll wrap it up.